Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. It's a weekly podcast where we figure out what we think about everything. And my name is Quarantine Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
Normal Ivanka Majic. This week, if you see the video, not that anyone can possibly see it unless they're a Patreon supporter, because who's going to log on to Twitch in time to see it? I don't know. We're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Michael Forrest, every week on Friday at 10 o'clock UK time. So you can see that I've got my curtains. If I open the curtain, it's London. Until the light gets adjusted. And that's what we're talking about this week.
London.
F ***ing London. Possibly F ***KING London. Frickin' London. Frickin' London. I'm so... I just found myself... I've been out of the city for 6 weeks and I've come back and I've just remembered some things that have just upset me about this place for the last 20 years. And I just thought, let's figure out, do I actually like it here? Do I want to live here? And Ivanka obviously moved out many years ago. We used to live quite near each other in the sort of Camden, Hampstead areas. But now, she disappeared off to Brighton and now even further afield. So we're just going to cover some stuff.
When you suggest the topic, one thing that I have been thinking all week is that I do love London though. I really do. But maybe it's distance that makes the heart grow stronger.
It could be. Just from a distance it's easier to love.
Maybe. So yes, I'm looking forward to this episode.
No, it's definitely got a lot going for it. But it's just other problems.
Are the problems worth it? Yeah.
The price. And we'll talk about, there's the price, there's the travel, there's the whole vacant property thing, and there's gentrification and just people generally being forced out of the nice areas and further. Everyone just lives further and further apart. The sort of gating off of the wealthy, that they get to sort of have their own separate little world while we just have to kind of go to Iceland. And it's not even in the EU anymore, so it's just
no, that's true.
There's just all this stuff. It's starting to feel more and more cursed, this place. So with that, let's play the next bit of music. How's it going, Ivanka?
It is going pretty well, I'd say.
Holiday, Ivanka.
Yeah,
Quote.
Not quite. It just means that no one's expecting me at any particular time. But as my child pointed out, Mummy, it doesn't feel. It feels just like a normal day as I disappear off into the office to do a couple of things. I'll be back in a minute. So yes, there's always things. I'm doing them. And because there's still the book, there's still the... working out what to recommend this organisation that I looked at doing a bit of coaching training for, but it has been nice. Let me tell you, I'm doing every morning, wake up 5:30, take dogs out with Nick, then I come back and I might potter in the garden, tie up a few tomato plants. The tomatoes are in abundance now. And then for this Saturday, that's tomorrow morning, I'm going for my first sort of much more organised eco-protesty beach clean. There will be divers cleaning the sea and various people cleaning the land. I'm going with a friend. Nick was willing to come, but he was like, it's going to be very hot. I was like, yeah, you're not really supposed to be out. And okay, so I asked my friend, she and I are going on bicycles. We're a bit dubious about whether or not we'll be able to survive the cycle ride back due to the heat. But,
What is the temperature there at the moment?
It's not just, it's in the 30s and it's very hot. It's very bright sunshine, but it's very burny. It's very burny at the moment. So a
little bit Bernie Sanders.
A little bit burny. But I am looking forward to it. I'm going with the Cleaning Bears.
Cleaning Bears. That's the name of your...
They're an organisation called the Cleaning Bears, the Čisteci Medvjedići.
Well,
so not a roll off the tongue.
That's a lot of syllables.
Anglo-Saxon speaker, yeah.
Three in English.
The cleaning teddies. So it's more like cleaning teddies, I suppose, rather than cleaning bears. But anyway, they're quite nice and sociable. But I haven't actually managed to make it to any one of their organised things because travel from an island, etc. But I thought for this one, because it's a bit campaigny, because there's this bay near Split that the campaign is called "The Town That Wants to Live." So it's and there's been various attempts to get politicians to take it seriously and deal with the ecocide that's happening in the area. They're not. So we're going to show. The idea is to go along, do a clean up, and show what people can do when they're willing to do something, and hopefully get some noise. So, you know, if I put anything on the Instagrams this weekend, even if you don't understand it, please do like it.
Okay.
Like and share.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
Cool.
But yes, I'll do a bit of that, and so I'm very excited, and hopefully I'll might make some friends. I mean,
Splendid.
come on. And how are you, Michael? How was your week?
It's okay. We flew back to London and we are in quarantine for 10 days and we've done our day 2 test, which is stick the thing up your nose 5 times. It's like, you got to love something that says, if you do this correctly, you will gag. If you do this part correctly, you will cry. It's like, cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So we've done that and we're getting like these calls from the NHS every single day. Although mine seem to have dried up because they run through this whole like identical script every time as well, and you sort of just got to. It's basically this could be done by a robot, really. This call, but it's sort of like, can we proceed with? Yes, and you're just like sort of saying yes. Are you quarantining? Did you take a test today? Yes. Was the test? The test was negative, and But yeah, we're doing that. Although they seem to have given up on me. Like they made it ring like twice yesterday, and then they rang Sharon's number, which I think I put as the second number. Well, the day before, and then yesterday they like rang her number first, and she said, "Can you like use the primary number? It's fine." And then they just never rang. It's like, okay, if they've just given up on me.
They've put you on a don't talk to him list.
Apparently, well, that's good. It saves me a good 5 minutes a day of sort of having the phone on speaker, trying not to miss the 1% of the time that I actually need to be listening. But there's that. But like just in contrast to where you are, it's just, you know, it's cold here, and I'm having to get used to putting like layers on again, even though it's supposed to be the summer. It's like 20 degrees, 19 degrees, but like speaking of gardens as well, Michael and Ivanka's gardening podcast, we like our front garden. I don't know how in 6 weeks it's turned into a jungle. But it has. But we did see that the holly bush that we moved is just dead now, and it's kind of overgrown. So we've got to get to that. But I think it's going to like rain all week, so it's fine. But in other news, you know, the football, I've not been really paying attention, but it's quite interesting that it's Italy versus England. So I have to pick a side. Is it Sharon or is it England? And what are the consequences of making that choice? Who knows? But you were saying it sounds like the England team is doing quite well in terms of values at the moment.
The Majic children on their own WhatsApp group had a discussion where, you know, we were raised by our father to support Croatia as a football team, and you know we've always observed the English football team with some scepticism in that kind of like glory boys, overconfident, la la la. And they are, you know, it's not, and they're not often fun to watch, I have to say. People can argue, I don't mind. But this team play as a team. They seem to be good people. So I think I've noticed a lot of noise on Twitter about them being too woke. They're the secret weapon of the woke. I'm like, rightly so. Football, we've had this conversation where footballers should use their position. They have an enormous amount of power and influence, and this lot are using it for good things. So
very good.
I'm all for them. So
Okay.
yes, I shall be cheering away massively on Sunday for England, as our house is filled with Italians. We're having a garden viewing of the because we've got
Garden
the projectors.
viewing.
Garden, yeah.
Imagine that.
But we've invited some Italians around.
Okay, well,
We hope it all ends peacefully.
Hope it doesn't devolve into a fist fight. Conversely to you, I'm sort of less interested in football. I guess we'll watch it or kind of half watch it or something on the Sunday. But because unlike you, I was brought up by my father to detest football. On the grounds of snobbery, primarily. So, London. When did you first move to London?
I got my first job commuting to London in the year 2000 or 99. I can't remember precisely. Okay. So that's when I started commuting up from Brighton every day. And much has changed. So the first office I worked in was by the now non-existent King's Cross Thameslink train station.
Right.
And it was proper ropey in terms of location, office, all of that, but great place to work. And then, so that's when I started hanging out in London a lot.
Mm.
But actually moving... I don't know, but it's a bit blurry, to be honest, because, occasionally there might have been a boy that I liked, so I might have stayed over a lot and sort of like pseudo-lived in London.
Right.
Based on which boy, staying at a boyfriend's house type moving to London. So, yeah, I'd say 99, 2000 is when I started becoming very at home in London.
Yeah. So I was like 2001, I think, or 2001. So I guess we started around a similar time, but then you left back for Brighton in 2009 or 8 or 7?
No, but I didn't move fully to London properly till, I can't remember. It's terrible, isn't it? Maybe 2002 I rented my first place, something like that, where I was full-time. I lived in Hackney first.
Yeah,
and then
me too.
Yeah, and then I...
Should we do whereabouts? It's on Graham Road.
I was like Hackney Wick, so quite a way
Hackney
out.
Wicks. Barely Hackney. Now that's the only place anyone can live in East London, Hackney Wick, and it's really expensive, and it's not a place anyone should really live because you can't really get anywhere.
I lived right next to Victoria Park, but I've always cycled. Yeah. I've always walked, so... I know it quite well. And then, but when did I 2009 was when 2008, 2009, you're right, well remembered, is when I moved back to Brighton properly and never moved back to London after that. Was after my back went. I found myself in my flat in Hampstead thinking, do you know what, I can't really get to the shop without crying. And you can't call somebody and go, can you just come round, because everyone's an hour away.
Yeah, and here is the crux of London. The myth of London is that it's one place, but but it's not. Like, if someone lives in East London, someone lives in North London, someone lives in South London, you might as well be living in separate cities as far as I'm concerned. And I used to go, when I first moved to London, I lived in Hackney, but my Bruce lived down in Brixton, and so I'd go out in Brixton usually. I'd come down to Brixton, but I'd stay the night there. Like, I wouldn't be like travelling back on the... and travel back on the night bus in 2001, like from frickin' Brixton to Hackney, it's sketchy, and it takes a long time, and you're drunk, and it was only really possible because of that spare room they had, and this idea that you're going to... And the thing that spurred this episode on was I came back and my friend Graham invited me to come and play his first. He wants to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, okay, I've seen it on Community, and I've seen it well presented in a couple of places. Maybe I'll give it a go. He wants to be the dungeon master, but I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll do that, because I've been away. I haven't seen him for a while. I'll go and do it. But then I look. It's like, it's going to be in Wood Green. I'm like, I look at the travel. It's like, Sunday evening, it's going to take me 55 minutes to get there on a bike or by tube, and then 55 minutes back, and it's like I like my Sunday because we watch a film on Sunday and we have some popcorn, and it's just going to eat my whole day. And I am sick of this feeling that I am somehow a bad person for not liking how fucking long it takes to get anywhere in London, and how no one can just live near each other. Like, why can't we just all live in frickin' Soho and frickin' like Soho, Covent Garden? Like, I don't know. Like, why isn't it that the situation? Why is it frickin' like Crystal Palace, Hackney Wick, Walthamstow, Acton, like all these places that are like 45 minutes from central London on different sides of the map. And if you want to have any friends, forget, if you want that casual friend, or if you want someone to just pop over, forget it. It's London. And everyone just, you know, and also the thing that used to, sorry, this is a rant, isn't it? The other thing that used to, like, as someone's trying to put on gigs, I just realized, like, people, they go out after work, so everyone works like relatively centrally, but they'll go after work, they'll sort of just start drinking, and then they'll just need to get home, like, and then that's it for the evening. Whereas if you actually live nearby, you could go home, have a sit down, watch the telly, have your dinner, and then come back out and have a sit around and just like have a quiet pint, instead of it always having to be this really like pressured, intense thing in town, and how long are you going to last, and like. Which it is, and I just you know, we were in Rome and just seeing, and even Milan as well. Like, you just see like La Vita Piazza, Sharon called it, like just the square life. Like, people just hang out in the squares, and like they live there. They live in the city, and they can hang out in the square and have a drink outside. There's some vendors on the side. Or Milan has this area really close to where Sharon's parents live, and that's called City Life, which is actually like a bit of a corporate-ish development, but it's got this huge park, and you just go there and you just see people of all ages, from all different backgrounds, all like milling around. Some work there. Most people are just like living around. People working where they live doesn't exist in London, and it's miserable. In terms of friendships, in terms of someone being able to come over at short notice if your back's causing you trouble.
Yeah, that is true. You're feeling better now.
I don't know if I'm
take
finished,
a deep breath?
But yeah, sorry that was ranty, but like I just needed to get it off my chest. I'm so sick of it. Like, why do I have to feel bad that London is broken, that London is just poisoned by money? Like, and no one can actually live in it anymore.
I think the thing that you said that resonated, I know, or the thing that I was made me think was the bit that where you said you've got people of different ages and different backgrounds in the park together, and London is very tribal. You go to different areas to see different kinds of people. It's a bit weird, like, and what you were saying about, you know, if you go for a drink after work, everyone in the pub is similar, tends to work in a similar thing, dress in a similar way, and it is a bit like it is a series of villages, though. I mean,
it's the villages, but they're sort of like out
nobody's
in the distance.
living in them,
like, and then
but even central London, they're sort of like, they're still villages.
Areas,
they're just villages that become dead at night.
Yes,
because nobody lives there. So yeah, it's a funny place.
Oh god.
But,
let's have a little break and regroup and come back. So right, with that the main stuff off my chest. Like, why did you move to London? Work.
Better, interesting work, more money. You had to earn. You basically needed to be if you're going to commute from Brighton. I think even moving to London, you need to be at a sufficient level of seniority that you can get enough wages to cover the train.
Right.
You know, like it. But I think it's very nice to know your capital. I mean, you know, you're talking about going from Brixton to Hackney to whatever, because I cycled everywhere, because I've worked in different places. I feel like I know, fundamentally, I can navigate approximately from there to there. I might know some short, you know, like which part, where things are relative to each other, how to get them, some sneaky shortcuts, all of those kind of things, which I think is nice. It's nice to know your capital city.
It is good to know it, yes.
And there's lots of you meet lots of different people when you know, it's like these places become hubs, don't they? And you meet people from everywhere.
Yeah.
You work, you know, it's like it is
like through work you definitely meet like everyone.
Yeah.
Like you're just pushed into this melting pot of different kinds of people, forced to make peace with your differences, and that is a wonderful thing about London. Like cycling, if you can do it, like I was just it is it's a terrifying idea for most people, the idea of cycling in London. And I don't know, are you one of these people that puts on a suit of armour and a bright red, like a pink helmet and like cycling shorts and all that?
I used to go for, when I commuted far enough, I used to go for the staying clothes that dried quickly. So I did have clothes to cycle in rather than clothes that kept me dry. That was my philosophy of, especially, you know, cycling to LBI.
Yeah.
You know, everyone had their bike stuff drying in the basement, in the stinky basement. But, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter. You're only going to have it on for a little while. I'm not overly into visibility. Like, I flip-flopped with the helmet, but generally caution. But I'm quite a, I don't know, own your space sort of cyclist, which here goes down like a lead balloon. Everyone drives. There's zero.
Right, they don't give you any.
Cyclists and then, so if you're like holding your, you know how in a city they're like, especially in London, they're like, if you're going to cycle down, like cycle so people can't try and sneak past you. Own your space. Make sure they see you. All that kind of thing.
Important.
And it's like,
stay away from the car doors. Like, I hate the cycling lanes that connect to the car doors. That you're just like, one person opens their door and like, God damn it.
Yeah, you're finished. But you know, I've had those. I mean, I really the one thing I think cycling is a brilliant way to get about any city, but London is because it's actually geographically. Yes, you've got all those places you mentioned, all those outskirt villages are miles apart. But you know, a 50-minute bike ride is, you know, it actually can be quite pleasant. You know, like it's
podcast in one ear. Like that's how I used to do it. But like I definitely agree. Like sorry, but like because I like when I came back from, but like the only time I haven't. So I like in terms of my London history, I moved here about 2001, and I lived here till now. So 20 years in this city, with 1 year living in Berlin, and that was like 6 years ago. And after coming back from like Berlin, I really like had a new. I didn't go anywhere in Berlin, like, not on my bike. I just went everywhere on my bike. It was just such a, like, and nothing was ever more than, like, even something across town was, like, maybe 45 minutes away. Like, and most things were, like, could be central, or they could be somewhere. So you weren't on your bike for it was a lot more cobbled, so you certainly got vibrated more on the bike. But, and I took that back with me to London. I was like, no, I'm not mucking about with these tubes anymore, these buses. I'm just going to cycle everywhere. But like it's just that like, to start off with, I didn't want to cycle in the central London, but then I got a job that made me have to cycle through Soho every now, and that was like, okay, well, that's now I've got no choice and I've just got to do it. So I got practiced at that, which I would never have done. But I'm not someone that wants to put a helmet on or do all that stuff, because I don't like this idea that cycling is this sort of danger sport. It should be something that's normal. And there's a brilliant video by Jay Foreman, like, why isn't cycling normal in London? Why is it like so many, like, I wish it was like these other cities where it's just people on their bikes, not like people in lycra, like cycling around, like shouting at people who are like, you know, driving past them. But I just, it's 50 minutes, it's an hour and 10 minutes, which I embraced to start with. And I did have a commute for a few weeks, like a couple of months, where I'd go like an hour each way to Tower Hill. And I got into a zone with that. There was a podcast I listened that had like 200 episodes that I just kind of got through all of those. Just one ear, just like, I'm still aware, but I don't, like, some people cycle with noise cancelling headphones in. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? But then, like, I did it at night, and there is a cost to it. Like, I like injured my like hamstrings cycling back from Hackney Wick for some like night out, and like ever since then I'm like, it's not just, I can't always justify getting on my bike for an hour to go somewhere and then on my bike for another hour to come back, because it is just a little bit too far. And then if there's, I don't know, if you kind of like lose concentration for a second, it can have consequences that are really bad. And I never felt that way in Berlin. And I think it's just not quite viable, London, that way. And I think
Go on.
Sorry, maybe Ubers everywhere is the way to do it, but that's stupid as well.
No, I do having a Brompton, which I thoroughly enjoy. I thought that was a load of nonsense so I borrowed one, same as my introduction to the Kindle. But it is brilliant because you can sling it in a taxi if you're tired.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big, or you can put it on a bus or put it in a train and on the train. It's like that. I think that makes a big difference on that sort of tiredness. Am I feeling freaked out? Do I just want to get there? Do I want to not expend any energy? Sort of point. But you're like, But
when you you feel like you can't get off it.
It's like, oh god. I mean, because I'm not huge. When I had a racer, that could fit in a black cab, and many black cabs would let you put your bike in the back. So I'm not averse to going. Oh, I'm done. Taxi. But I think though. I think there's something. I love the feeling.
It is a great feeling when it's like
the freedom, the things that I love about London. Like if I coming up from Brighton, come into Victoria Station, and now I need to go somewhere for work. Pretty much anywhere I need to go is going to lead me through St James's Park, Buckingham Palace, Trafalgar Square, Covent Garden. These are beautiful places.
You get to go through
some amazing parts, some real proper, people travel to come to these sites, and you're just like walking to work. I mean, when I was pregnant, I had a job on High Holborn, and so I'd walk. It was like a 50-minute walk, but it was a beautiful walk. There was no ugly bit. It was like, yes, look at me. This is my walk to work. How amazing is this?
This is very true. This is definitely a good point. Like when on my commute, it literally took me past Buckingham Palace every day and through Hyde Park, through that lakes, and it was just a really nice route. I'm seeing some red. I hope this stream is okay. But also but I think in terms walking is another thing. Like my favourite period of living in London would have to be when I lived in Shoreditch, near the top of Brick Lane, and I did this what's your walking score of your area, and I put it into this website, and it was 100. You can walk to everything, and just being able to go to do my Christmas shopping, I could walk to Spitalfields Market and do 2 trips. I could go to the shops to buy some jeans and try them on at home and bring them back. And people would go out around there, and I would bump into people, I would see people. And if I had I got invited to do some talks about my app, and it would be in the area because that's where all the cool companies were. So I'd just have to walk around there, and it was 10 minutes away. And that was a great period. But there's also that feeling maybe I'm 10 minutes from the station, but my 10 minutes walk is through Spitalfields Market and through shops and nice place. Things, Liverpool Street, and it's a really nice place. And so that's something where I am now, it's 10 minutes to the tube, but the walk to the tube is grim. It's Harrow Road. It's just and so this area I couldn't commit to doing without a bike, because I just need to get out of the range of it. It's weird because it's quite central, but it's sort of a weirdly forgotten zone of I don't know. And if anything, it will become Edgware Road, I think, eventually. But it's a strange place. But just this feeling of I don't mind if my time to travel somewhere is taken up with beauty, and feeling you get a cab, even you can get a taxi from South London to North London, and you're sort of coming across the bridge and all the lights and all the fantastic things that you can only get in London. And that's I don't mind that. But it's more I've got to go around the top of London through Cricklewood to frickin' I don't know, to get somewhere. It's just that's where I'm this is not giving me anything.
I think it's I think on that whole quality of life in London, I think that's tricky unless you have moved out to a particular place. I know I've got groups of people that have moved to Walthamstow or Crouch End or what have you. And that's there's a life around that, but they all have to commute to somewhere. Though I suppose that's a big change recently. But I think that there's other things that I think are harder in London, getting a doctor's appointment,
Yeah.
or life is harder in London. Life stuff, life admin,
stuff is
going to the
harder.
shops, doing the thing, doing normal stuff. Just life admin, I think, is the best summary of it. But I've also think about working in Millbank Tower.
Yeah.
Never mind the circumstances, but the actual view.
Yeah.
The walk along the river,
Yeah.
the being so close to the Tate Britain, and being
Yeah.
able to go in and have lunch there. And London,
Going-
when you've got
going-
money as well.
Going at lunchtime, going, oh, why is there no clock in this kitchen? And then going, oh, Big Ben's visible out the
Yeah.
window. That's why there's no clock in this kitchen.
Exactly, and it's
you know.
these are that. But I think also being able to, I think London has a lot of loveliness to offer you, especially if you've got some money
And
cash to burn.
But I kind of sometimes worry, only if you've got money. I couldn't, I like the idea of living in Shoreditch now is I sort of took over a flat that maybe I got a slightly less rent than I might otherwise have been paying, but you are just trapped in your job, trapped in the sort of the middle class cycle of I've got to be earning X, all this money all the time just to stay afloat. And that is the feeling of London for most people. You got to sort of I just said before, my laptop, I just pulled this off the shelf next door, this laptop stand that I think cost me 80 quid. And there was a period in my life where that was because I was earning so much money just because I had to, because my rent was $2,000 or 1,500 quid, in that kind of area. That it just didn't seem like anything to just spend money on stupid stuff like that. But now that I'm living on the bare minimum, trying to sort of build my business and get things going and not have any of those, not be sort of stuck in that treading water state. It's the idea of that so much money goes into. It's so expensive, and it's really hard to do anything without having money. I mean, when I started, I had a job in London Borough of Newham, and I used to just have to I used to get the Zone 2 and 3 travel card and just kind of sometimes just go through central London and just I'm saving money on travel cards every day because it's the only way to get to work. And sometimes I'd forget and just have to walk behind someone at the turnstile and stuff like that just to get to work. And so with no money, it is not a friendly place.
No, not at all. No.
Let's have a break. So there's a lot to love about London, and there's a lot that couldn't happen anywhere else, I think. Sometimes you go to some of these European cities or some of these cities elsewhere, you're like, what is this? It's 3 blocks and then it's over. London, you can walk from one end of London, you'll see about 37,000 different things, and that'll change every day. It's it is a on the scale of things. Even compared to, I haven't been to loads of big cities, but thinking about Hong Kong, Hong Kong's an impressive city. Actually, I think I prefer it in some ways, but there's less of that sort of what I like about London, and what made me fall in love with London, was that people seem to be awake. And all of these, I think because I'm quite an anxious person, and I look both ways to cross the road, and I'm worried about dangers that probably in a small village and very rarely gonna actually happen. In London, I'm standing on the Central Line platform, and there's this train coming 6 inches from my face that could kill me if I just took a wrong step. I'm finally my anxiety has a place where it makes sense. but it's a place that it's alive, and when you sort of come from somewhere a bit too sleepy, it's thank God, people are actually I can actually work as hard as I want to work, which can the problem with Berlin for me was there's a certain amount of work I enjoy that just wasn't really compatible with that city. I just ended up making more work for myself and turning it into this introspective thing, because most people don't really need to work as much as I like to work, and they're just they're doing the hedonism, and it wasn't really a great fit for me on that level. London, it's got all the things here.
has got all the things. It really has. There's no shortage of. This is what I mean about having money to spend. Like the dinners you can eat, the drinks you can drink, in the views that you can drink and eat them, in the stories, the difference, the sort of edginess of some places, the different styles, the opulence of others, the art, the different theatre, comedy, music, like anything that you want to do. You can just fill your time, and I think it's a wonderful city, a brilliant city to walk through on your own. Like walking through on your own, there is just so much to see and so many different people to look at and be part of. I love it. In that way, I absolutely love it. I love the parks. It's the like parks, New York has got Central Park, but that's about it. London, it's just every civilized amount of time there's another lovely park, and there's another amazing park with this well-established, well-kept park with it's just
it's like historical architecture surrounding it.
And we can go through the what was stolen. What is so full of like iconic imagery. It is. It's like it's a postcard. It's walking around in it. It's been there for a long time. It's just. I think it's a
you see there's like everything's happening here in I mean I do want to talk about good things about London, but there is this idea that it being in London is this nebulous concept of London, but the sad reality of it is if I live in Maida Vale and one of the best comedy clubs is in London, but it's in Greenwich, like that it might as well be in Liverpool.
It might as well. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but of course there is that. And then you ask yourself, okay, all this theatre's available, but how often do you go, or how often do you make a point of going? And in fact, I've come up to London to do more things, and even to some extent, than I have when I'm organising when I live there. But I also think like it represents a time in my life where I was full on like you say, working really hard, going out, partying, drinking, all sorts of, like I mentioned drinking probably too. It is that sort of let's do this, let's try this, let's do this,
I think that was one thing when I quit drinking, and like I'd go to the pub with people and they just wanted to stay till closing time. I'm like, we could go somewhere else. We could see some more stuff. Like, why don't we do that? Like, we're in Islington, we're in Angel, we're in somewhere interesting. Like, I've heard about this thing, or you can see something really that you would not see anywhere else, and it's just normal. And if you have got money, you get to. There's this thing of like, you can go to like the Scala or like some of these venues and see some acts, but it is. You are like herded in like cattle. Maybe COVID will change that forever. I don't know. Like some of these places, like you see a band, and you're like, there's nowhere to move. Like, and you sort of go. You see, there's a little balcony, and you go, you need the money to be able to go in the VIP section just to get a normal experience of this event. And you realise that there's this stratification of London that you really need to like spend like a lot more money just to get something that you might this might be normal anywhere else, because it's like there are a lot of people here, and a lot of people want to go to that gig or don't want to go to that. It's pretty intense. Like if you want to get a ticket to something, you better buy it straight away. Like if there's a big band playing, and then you're going to be like not treated like a human being when you go in. Yeah.
But then I wonder if I'd have worked anywhere else between my, how was I, maybe 23 when I started working there, and then all the way till, the COVID. It's like it represents a time. I wonder if you'd have, I would have I'm surely would have as much affection for any city that I spent that period of my life in. But I think that London does, even having friends like Andre and being able to hang out in Kensington, live like a faux life of wealth. There's people here. We're going for pizza and Adamant is at the next table.
Right, yeah.
That is Cool.
You
That
can
happens
follow
in
Noel
London.
Gallagher through like
Yeah,
Tesco's.
yeah, yeah. Or
Like,
you can you can sit in what was that? In Shoreditch when I had my first jobs. You'd be there with like there's all the pulp people. There's just like
well, even where we are, which feels like sort of a bit like nowhere, like 5 minutes from our house, like David Harbour like was walking around through Tesco's. I'm like, he's a Marvel megastar now, not to mention Stranger Things. It's like flipping heck. And you're like, it is London, like
yeah.
We watched this film, I would recommend it, yesterday on Netflix. It's the premise is there's a global blackout and everyone that doesn't remember that the Beatles existed.
I've watched it. It's brilliant.
Good.
It's brilliant.
And it's got like Ed Sheeran in it. But there is that thing of like, maybe if you do live like in Dorset or whatever, that there probably are famous people around there as well having a nicer time than they would in central London, where they're getting in and out of cabs and like hiding and only going to really expensive restaurants and that kind of thing. But definitely in terms of what is available to you, like it's a great place to live as a rich person. Like it's probably unparalleled.
Actually.
If you've got the money, like London is the place to be, and which is or if you're at least not worried about creating capital for yourself, and you're getting paid a lot of money in your job, and you're just happy to spend it, then it's a good place to be as well.
Yeah.
But if you want to actually build your own wealth, then it's a lot harder,
trickier. Yeah. I think one of the other things that I have loved about London, but I think this is a British thing actually, not a London, but London. Yeah. Embodied it for me, is this I think Britain is incredibly tolerant of you doing your own thing in terms of style or look or politics, or like you can, if you want to protest something in London, it's very easy to get organised or become part of something that you want to protest. And I think that, and you're doing it in a visible place. You are in Parliament Square. I know they're trying to stop us all from doing that at the moment, but it's there. You can make your statements, and you're allowed, or you used to be able to. You're allowed to, and it's part of how it works. It's part of the city's job to support all that, and I think that's another thing that I've always sort of cherished about London, which I think this bill has killed off.
Is it actually gone through?
I think it has. I think
God,
I've been trying to
cry.
Only half looking at it.
We'll link to that. We'll link to it and find out. But there's that bill that the Tories
should know. But I'm just like,
it's hard
I'm
to
dipping
stay on
into
top of
news.
everything. Anyway, let's clip it. Didn't sound as good as I remembered. Right, believe it or not, from what that was, before I moved to London, I moved down because it was the place to be as a band. It was a place to get discovered as your band, and I had my band, and we were excited. We were going to move down to London, because of the tragedy with my mother, my granddad, and I did have a little bit of money that I was burning a hole in my pocket that I inherited from my granddad, that let me move me and my friend down into a flat in Hackney. So I don't think I could have done it without that. But we came down to do the band, and like music has always been the number one reason that I provided for wanting to live in London, because there's just opportunities here that there aren't anywhere else. Sort of 20 years in, I feel like I've been as close to that kind of like major mainstream music production thing as anyone could be. Like when I was, I was like in a sustained way. I had my studio in Hammersmith, and there was literally like label, like artist management for like some huge artists, like the husband, like the partner of the Island Records owner, who's like my dream label probably when I thought about it, and like but I just, the overriding sense. And this, I think this applies beyond music to everything in London, is this absolute cynicism of the place. The absolute oppressive monetization and cynicism. And the way that manifests for you in a band is you ask a promoter, you kind of send your demos to this promoter, and then they deign to give you a slot on their night, where band showcase night, where there are 5 different bands playing back to back on a conveyor belt, like singing their hearts out, and there's about 8 people in the audience, and you have to, like, you're not getting paid anything for it, and there's like the money on the door is all going to this promoter who's just like harvesting the dreams of these musicians that are coming through the city, because there is an infinite supply of wannabe musicians coming through the city, and that just means you're just ripe for being like exploited. Things like, there's this one company that like they put you on the show, you don't get paid, and then also they're taking pictures, but you're not even allowed those, but you have to pay them for the pictures that they've taken of your gig that you played. And it's just absolutely, I think, like you see it like modeling agencies and all these things, people come down with the dreams, and there is just a cynical system to just harvest you and spit you out. And I don't know that anyone's actually finding success through that conveyor belt, but if you come from a small village or like the provinces into the city of London, it is just going to like ruin, it's just going to like rinse you out.
Yeah.
And you're going to realise that your dreams aren't nothing and no one cares, and you just have to have a normal job in marketing, like it's like, or you're just going to like go under. And that combined with, and another perspective on that is like, I just remember being in Berlin in Maus Maus's studio. Yes, that was the greatest weekend of my life. It was a good weekend for me. But just being in their studio and going, like seeing this little empty space in the middle, like this atrium thing that I couldn't tell if you could get out to. So it's a nice place for a barbecue. And I probably told this. And then like you go, why am I, like I see like 3 square meters of space, and I'm like, oh, that would be a nice place to hang out. And it's like, or you just go out the building and you're on the front of the river, and there's like all this nice stuff and scenery and nice things. Why would you go in there and set up a barbecue? Because I'm from London, and like every square foot is cordoned off and monetized, and you can't go in unless you pay. And it's like it. And if you want anything nice, you got to pay twice as much, and that whole thing again. It's just like there's no people that don't know what they've got, right? There's no family businesses that don't know what they've got anymore. They're just doing a good job because they love it, and they don't need to rinse you out and be really cynical with you. Anyway, I just talked for 10 straight minutes, and I'm going to let you talk.
Well, no. I think yes. I think a lot of what you're talking about is modern life, but London sort of crystallizes it. It's like this distilled the good and the bad and everything all in one place, and it's like it's just so. I think it is a hard place to live, but it's an easy city to love. I think it's just full of joy as well as misery, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's things that couldn't happen anywhere.
Except that, but no, they couldn't. But there's like there's I mean,
it makes everywhere else look a bit provincial. And,
it does.
Yeah.
It's like there's anyone listening from Rome.
Even Rome seemed like quite like easy. Like it seemed. I mean, I was there when it was just opening up from lockdown, so it wasn't like super crowded. But
London is uptight. You know, you were talking about the cynicism. It's all that affects every job. When you say, "Oh, just a normal job in marketing," I don't think there is one in London. Do you know what I mean? Like, where if you like, everyone's like, kind of like rabid with their sort of like, I've got to London, I've got to make this work, I've got to manage, I've got to make enough money to stay in London, I've got to be more, it's Rah! It's like everyone is literally and figuratively on coke.
Yeah,
They're
and
like,
I'm contrasting that with like being an artist and being a creative person more than like, and trying to make a living as an artist more than like, and what to me that getting a job in marketing means suddenly the most important thing in the world to me is whether this shampoo has the right creative on the first stage of the campaign, and I'm going to work till 10 o'clock at night every night. Because nothing matters more, and I'm never going to go home, and then maybe I'll be fine. Like like the jobs aren't like you can't actually get a job until you're. I guess it's the same with music. Like you've got to actually be willing to like sell your soul to it. Thankfully, not in the way Americans do.
But I think London is quality. The BBC's come out and it's quality. The science, there's all these things that are just like done really well. And I think that's the bit, and that comes also at a price. So if you want to go, I was thinking as you were talking about, I was like, all of what you're saying is true, and there's rough sleepers, there's homelessness, it's dirty in places, there's all sorts of stuff going on. And then but at the same time, like the last time I was able to take my daughter up, we went to the Tate Modern, where was like there were these wonderful, like they'd just done the Paddington movie, and there was all sorts of stuff on the street to do with that, and she was mesmerised, and she rolled around in the Tate Britain on the down in the hall, which are the Turbine Hall or whatever it's called, because I've forgotten my words because it's been 700 years since I was in London. And then and we just had there's just things for her to look at, and it wasn't some lame ass provincial
you can
one room exhibition.
What you can happen across is just incredible, and like you just leave the house and you walk around and it's like, oh wow. And there is definitely that. So I think is what I'm trying to say is that we should end this episode on a high. Okay. It's just my heart is love. My heart is. I'm just trying to decide whether I want to break up with this goddamn city forever, and just move, because I just think I want to be in Europe, and I just want that square life. I just want that.
You want square life?
It's just like how many more we only get one or two more chances to move in this life, because it takes years to actually create any connections. But like I literally saw my friends more when I lived in Berlin than I did when I lived in London, because they'd made a special trip and they knew I lived there and they'd come and find me. And it is so weird. But I know you want to leave it on a high. I don't know what the high is for me. It's breaking my heart, this city, and I don't know what to do about it. So
breaking up with the city is quite I think that's. I hadn't. Now you've framed it like that. I think we can have a more melancholy end. But I was. I have to. The thing that tipped me over the edge was when I'd been living in that flat in Hampstead for over a year, and somebody had returned my phone bills to the phone company as not known at this address. And I was like, seriously, it's like you are invisible.
It's true.
You are, and that to me was the bit that's like, you say established contacts and networks and
friends. Yeah.
London, I don't know that's you don't have casual kind of friends with your you talked about, you just don't. The people don't talk to each other.
The closest I found was sharing like a block. But even that, like, you don't know who you're going to get. But then I guess that's the whole point, is you don't know who you're going to get when you're getting these sharing places. But yeah, like, I don't know. It's tough.
It is.
And we haven't even talked about the buy to leave stuff, but I think maybe we'll save that for another time, and I'll play the title music.
Google buy to leave.
All right, let's end it. It's like an abusive partner, isn't it? It's like they give you things, they give you a diamond and then they kick you in the face. It's like, I mean, I don't know what that metaphor was. They give you a nice meal and then they kick you in the face repeatedly.
Whoa.
But you go, but the meal was nice.
I didn't mean it. Yeah, I think it's, I think it is. Breaking up with the city, that's a big ask.
We'll see if it's going to happen. I think 20 years is probably long enough for me. But I always look at people that are they say, oh, you're going to move out of the city. I'm like, no, I'm going to stay in the city, and I'm going to be so rich. I'm going to have a penthouse in London Bridge, and I'm going to see everything. I'm going to be. And now I'm like, oh, am I though? So anyway, if you like the podcast, go to grandpodcast.com. See what's there. Where can people find you on the internet?
At Ivanka on Twitter is the best place to find me.
You can find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter and on other platforms. Nobody ever does any of the call to actions, so I'm not going to say them.
Persistence, Michael, beats resistance.
173 persists. If you're on chat, say hi. Tell us who you are. So we'll be back next week, and I will be finally back in my studio. That was a thing. At least I found a studio that was pretty cheap, but it's probably still would be cheaper to do it. I'd just have a shed if I was in the provinces, so I wouldn't even need to pay for it. Anyway, let's just say goodbye. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.